Ghost Families, Phantom Kids, Uncovering the Hidden Layers of Welfare Fraud in Minnesota, by Phillip C. Parrish, retired U.S. Navy Lieutenant Commander, 21 years in intelligence, fraud whistleblower, farmer, administrator, teacher, father, and 2026 Republican candidate for governor of Minnesota. Imagine a quiet morning in Minnesota, interrupted by a phone call from someone risking it all to speak out. That's what happened to me recently. The caller, a whistleblower I'll refer to as Susie to protect her identity, worked in one of the companies that helps administer our state's social services programs. Her voice cracked as she shared stories that kept her up at night. Families on paper but gone in reality. Kids claimed for benefits like food assistance and medical care, yet shipped off to live cheaply abroad while the checks keep coming. It's heartbreaking, she told me, because those dollars are supposed to feed hungry mouths here, not fun vacations or wire transfers overseas. Susie's not alone. She's seen the toll on real Minnesotans who play by the rules, only to watch their tax dollars vanish into this black hole. Take the story of a single mom I know from my local community. Let's call her Maria. She's scraping by on 2 jobs, her kids going without extras because the waiting list for housing aid is endless. Meanwhile, fraudsters game the system, subletting subsidized apartments to cram in more people and pocket the profits. Maria broke down in tears at a community meeting, saying, "I pay my taxes every year, but where's the help for us? It feels like we're invisible." Stories like hers hit home for me as a father and lifelong Minnesotan. Or think about the veterans I've served with. Guys who fought for this country now waiting months for benefits while billions get siphoned off. One Navy buddy of mine, battling PTSD, couldn't get the therapy he needed because funds were tied up in bogus claims. "It's a betrayal," he said, his voice heavy with frustration. "These aren't just numbers. Their lives derailed by a system rigged against the honest. This isn't isolated. It's part of a larger issue I've seen up close. From my time as a unit legal officer in the Navy to my work exposing fraud in Minnesota's daycare system. Service members and their families have faced similar exploitation, with partners sometimes claiming benefits from both the U.S. and their home countries. In Minnesota, with our generous safety net and welcoming policies, the problem has exploded. Add in reports of multiple families listing the same child as a dependent to boost their claims, and you see how the system gets bled dry. Housing tells a similar gut-wrenching story. Some recipients secure subsidized apartments or vouchers by sharing tales of hardship, only to sublet the space to others, often more families or individuals, pocketing the extra income. My investigations into daycare fraud uncovered echoes of this. Over 1,000 ghost children claimed for subsidies, some listed long after they had passed away. It's not about judging communities as a whole, but about closing loopholes that allow bad actors to thrive. And the scale? Federal investigators warn it's one of the largest welfare fraud waves in U.S. history, with over $1 billion stolen from programs meant for the vulnerable. Recent federal probes paint a stark picture. In the Twin Cities Somali neighborhoods, home to about 108,000 residents, or 78% of Minnesota's Somali population, Operation Twin Shield reviewed 1,000 cases and found fraud in 44 to 50% of them. Sham marriages, fabricated deaths, and duplicate dependents were common. Scaling that up, we're talking thousands of potential cases statewide. The Feeding Our Future scandal alone siphoned off $250 million in fake meal programs, with funds wired overseas, some allegedly to groups like Al-Shabaab. Autism therapy fraud added another $14 million in bogus Medicaid claims. COVID relief, up to $250 million more vanished, often through suitcases at the airport. And now, the Treasury is probing whether some of this money funded terrorism abroad via remittances, which top $500 million annually from Minnesota. Nonprofits like Lutheran Social Services and Catholic Charities, which receive over $100 million in grants yearly, have faced scrutiny for lax oversight. This fraud ripples out, leaving real pain in its wake. Schools strain under ESL programs that have tripled in cost since 2010. Neighborhoods face rising challenges, like a 40% uptick in certain crimes in St. Cloud, and resources for vulnerable locals, from veterans to single parents, get squeezed. Let me be crystal clear. This is not about race, color, or creed. This is about unhealthy and inappropriate behaviors that exploit the vulnerable and rob the poor. Scripture warns us plainly of such things. Jesus himself drove the money changers from the temple, overturning tables in righteous anger against those who turned a house of prayer into a den of thieves. John 2:13-16. The prophet Micah cried out, "Woe to those who plan iniquity, to those who plot evil on their beds. They covet fields and seize them, and houses and take them. They defraud people of their homes. they rob them of their inheritance. Micah 2:1-2. And in Matthew 3:10, John the Baptist thundered, "The axe is already at the root of the trees, and every tree that does not produce good fruit will be cut down and thrown into the fire." Grifting and scamming off the backs of the labor of the hardworking poor is not kindness, nor is it a righteous endeavor. It is an unrighteous and unjust wickedness, feeding the egos of disingenuous, unrighteous, unhealthy, intellectually and morally broken people who hide behind false compassion while robbing the truly needy. These are the wolves in sheep's clothing Jesus warned us about, Matthew 7:15, preying on generosity while the least among us suffer. Yet, amid these revelations, some voices downplay the crisis, shielding the guilty at the expense of truth. Take State Sen Jim Abler, Raranoka, who recently scolded President Trump for calling Somalis garbage and invited him to Minnesota to meet business people, drivers, hourly workers, nurses, students, and clerics. Abler, who's been courting Somali votes since 2014, talks up their family values and ethics, drawing from his faith that no man, woman, or child is trash. Nice words, but here's the rub. I've known Jim personally for 20 years. I've laid out the facts to him and countless elected officials, the audits, the indictments, the billions gone. He knows the whole truth. So why the deflection? He's got a choice. Either he's a participant in this fraud machine, turning a blind eye to keep the grants flowing, or he's just another grifter riding the wave for political points. Either way, it's a betrayal of Minnesotans. And he's not alone, leaders like DFL Sen. Omar Fateh praised such outreach while federal probes uncover billion-dollar thefts on Gov. Tim Walz's watch. The House Oversight Committee is now investigating widespread social services fraud, and Trump's comments, tied to ICE arrests in Minneapolis, highlight real fears in the community. Ignoring the fraud doesn't help anyone, it just lets the problems fester, eroding trust and resources for those who need them most. Deniers like Abler aren't protecting people, they're protecting the racket. My friends, the axe is laid at the root of these corrupt trees. It's time to awaken, to shake ourselves from the slumber of misplaced compassion and face the truth. Many good people have been misled, lulled into silence by fear of offense or false narratives. But Scripture calls us to discernment, to justice, and to protect the widow, the orphan, and the poor among our own first. We can love our neighbors while demanding accountability. We must. Minnesota's nice reputation shouldn't mean turning a blind eye. These aren't errors, they're organized schemes exploiting our compassion, leaving families like Maria's in the cold. As your next governor, I'll push for full audits, stronger verification for claims, clawbacks of stolen funds, and reforms to prioritize citizens and legal residents. We'll support integration that works for everyone, without the waste, bearing good fruit that honors God and serves Minnesotans. If you've seen signs of this or have tips, reach out. Your voice matters. Together, we can protect our shared resources and build a stronger, more righteous Minnesota.